Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. I don't normally do the birthday things. Occasionally, I might do it. But sometimes when some of our favorite rock stars are celebrating like milestone birthdays, you gotta mention it, you gotta celebrate it, and you gotta talk a little bit about why some of these folks mean so much to us. So, of course, today is the 80th birthday of a guy named Richard Hugh Blackmore, otherwise known as Ritchie Blackmore, who was born on this day, April 14th, 1945. He turns 80 today. And it just dawned on me. A couple of people asked this morning if I was going to do something on Ritchie, and I know I did a show on Brendan Snyder's channel yesterday, and Phil Aston was talking about how he was going to do a whole week dedicated to like Blackmore and whatnot. And I figured, as someone who has talked about Ritchie for so many years on this channel, and he's been, one of my favorite guitar players for as long as I can remember. On his 80th birthday, I figure, let me say a couple of things about him in celebration of his birthday, right? And I know he's had some, he's gone through some health issues in recent years. He had like a mild heart attack and had a couple of stents put in, and he's going through some back issues and whatnot. He's 80 years old, right? I think his traveling and touring days are pretty much drawing to a close. But you never thought we'd say that about Ritchie Blackmore, right? The guy who has been such a force on the scene for so many years since the mid-late 60s. And here we are in 2025, and we're still talking about him. And, he's still, been making music and playing music up until really recently. I just thought I'd kind of go back and maybe reminisce a little bit about Ritchie Blackmore and kind of what he's meant to me over the years. I mean, I remember being a young teenager and falling in love with the music of Deep Purple, pretty early on, like in the late 70s. And I've told this story before, but the first Deep Purple album I ever bought was Deepest Purple, which was a compilation that came out while the band was kind of not in existence at the time, right? They were broken up at the time. And this compilation had a whole handful of tracks, both from the Mark II era of the band and the Mark III era of the band. It had that wonderful purple color with the Stratocaster guitar and all the live shots on the back of all the different folks. And I just happened to buy that because, again, the cover looked great, and I loved the live shots, and I was whatever I was, like a 12 or 13-year-old kid who didn't really know any better, and I just bought it, and I brought it home, and I fell in love with it. And then the next album I bought from them was Made in Japan, and that just completely blew my mind. And not only hearing this guy Ian Gillan sing, and Coverdale and Hughes as well, and John Lord's Hammond and everything else about the band, but it was that guitar playing of Ritchie Blackmore that just was so over the top and amazing. And at the time, my guitar hero then, because I was just starting to get into like guitar players and stuff, was Robin Trower. But then you have this guy Ritchie Blackmore, and I'm like, wow, this is completely different from that. They both play Stratocasters, but they couldn't be any more different. And the wildness of Blackmore's playing and this kind of ferocious sense of reckless abandonment that like at any given time he could play something completely different, but it's just so amazing and so great. And I was amazed, as I started to accumulate some of the solo albums, how like when you listen to the live recordings, because I got Made in Europe fairly shortly after, and listening to the studio versions and live recordings and thinking, man, this guy was just like on stage every night. He wanted to recreate these songs in a different way, depending on his mood and whatnot. And I loved his like really, really fast stuff. He could do the bluesy stuff. He did these little classical bits. His use of the whammy bar was amazing. And just the guy could shred, but he could play some really tasty stuff. And of course, then, I started getting into Rainbow, and got to see him live with Rainbow, right? Because I got to see him also with the Deep Purple reunion in 1980, early 85. Perfect Strangers came out in 84, but they started touring here and were playing in my area in early in the year. And just really was like completely enraptured in the playing of this guy for so many years. I still am. Unfortunately, as he got older and he started leaving like kind of the hard rock and heavy rock and stuff behind, I'm not much as interested in the Blackmore's Night stuff. The more acoustic, Renaissance-y type stuff is just not really my thing. So I've kind of, like, in more recent years, I have started paying closer attention to other guitar players. Although Ritchie is still like a number 2 or number 3 guy to me, and he's still probably, if you look at all my years of like worshiping guitar players and listening to guitar players, he's still probably the guy. Because to me, the work that he did from like 1970 to like the mid 80s, that like 15-year period, to me is some of the most exciting and some of the best guitar playing I've ever heard. And the guy could write and crank out amazing riffs. He, as a soloist, was pretty much, to me, one of the greatest of all time. But there's something also about like seeing him live, and I've seen Blackmore live a number of times, and there's just something about him. He's just exudes this like mystique and this element of danger, which I don't know if anybody else has ever really captured. Guys like Jim Morrison or Hendrix in different ways for sure, but there's something about Blackmore that that there's all sorts of stuff going on in that head of his, and he's like every second of every live appearance, he's like kind of like, all right, what can I do next, and how am I going to react to this, and the singer did that, I'm going to do this, and the cameraman's over there, I don't know about that. It's just he's one of those guys, just this unpredictability that I think always has attracted me to his playing. And got albums like In Rock and Burn and Machine Head and Made in Japan and Rainbow Rising and Long Live Rock and Roll and Perfect Strangers and, all this stuff. Just all these amazing records. And like, we've talked a lot here on the channel about how, like, so many Deep Purple live albums have come out in, more recent times. And I've been collecting all of them. And all the ones that have Blackmore on it, man, you could listen to like 3 or 4 different live recordings from the same tour. And every one of them is so different because Ritchie brings so much to the table, and he mixes things up on a daily basis. And to me, that's exciting guitar playing. It's like, I don't know to hear these musicians play the same exact thing, same exact notes night after night after night, to me is like, I want bring something different to the table, right? And that's, Blackmore always brought different things to the table, and probably still does to this day. So happy birthday, Ritchie Blackmore. And again, it's actually a good thing that we're doing something like this, as opposed to the other option video, right? Which I hate doing, but it's Ritchie's still with us, thankfully, and hopefully he will be for a number of years more. But yeah, he is 80. He's getting up there, right? But we're lucky to still have him. So Ritchie Blackmore, happy birthday. Just know, I know you're probably not going to watch this, but just know that you have made this person you've enriched my life quite a bit over the years, and your guitar playing and your songwriting and all that stuff has made my life all that much more enjoyable to be able to listen to your music and bring that into my life, and for me to be able to talk about your music. I mean, I feel like I've made a career on talking about Ritchie Blackmore and his music for so many years, and that's quite okay with me. So yeah, happy 80th, Ritchie Blackmore. Thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alerted of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. All the other stuff is down below, ways you can contribute to the channel. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Make sure you leave your thoughts on Ritchie Blackmore and what his music and his guitar playing has meant to you over the years. And we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.